Good morning, everyone. I'm forecaster Jack Sillin here to talk about Tropical Storm Gordon moving northwest through the Gulf of Mexico. The system brought heavy rains and gusty winds to Florida yesterday. It is now moving towards the Mississippi Gulf Coast, where it's forecast to make landfall at some point tonight. I'm going to take a quick look starting out here with the GOES East visible satellite imagery. This is the 1 minute mesoscale sector, so we get new imagery every 1 minute. Which is pretty great. Notice that the storm, which is centered right around here, is still a bit lopsided this morning. Most of the shower and thunderstorm activity concentrated to the north and east of the center. This is due to some light wind shear remaining out of the west, which is kind of pushing that thunderstorm activity off to the east of the system. That's why we didn't really see the rapid intensification last night that we thought might happen. So that's a good thing for residents of the northern Gulf Coast here between New Orleans and Pensacola, Florida, including parts of Mississippi and Alabama. Not quite expecting as strong of a storm as we thought would be possible yesterday. So thanks to that wind shear. Looking at the infrared satellite loops from overnight and early this morning, we can see that despite the fact that the storm remained a little bit more disorganized than we were worried about, there's still some signs of increasing organization, especially towards the end of the loop. The latest imagery this morning, you can see this area of convection really blossom up in the last hour or so right around the center. So the storm continues to strengthen, albeit gradually, as it moves off to the north and west. In terms of timing and impacts, here's a look at the lightning analysis, showing that lightning in the eye wall, kind of using those terms lightly because the storm's inner core remains pretty poorly defined. But the lightning, nevertheless, is a sign that the storm continues to strengthen with that very intense thunderstorm activity blossoming up near the center. We'll see if it can actually develop an eye or eye wall-like structure. And if we look actually at the radar, so again, you can toggle the storm tracking options here with these blue buttons. We can see this sort of pseudo-eye feature here. Thankfully not very well organized, but we'll see what the storm can do over the next 12 hours or so as it moves closer to land. As the storm does move closer to land, we'll be looking for increasing impacts along the Gulf Coast, basically from Pensacola down towards the Mississippi-Louisiana border. Looking for these strong winds to develop. Again, in the core of the storm, we'll see how consolidated that core can actually get in the next 12 hours or so. So there's some disagreements among the models. The models that allow for convection, so thunderstorms, are bringing the core basically right towards Biloxi and are a bit more consolidated, whereas the larger scale global models that can't quite resolve some of those thunderstorms take the storm a little bit farther west and are a bit weaker with it as well. So we'll see the mesoscale models here might be overdoing it a little bit and the global models might be underdoing a little bit, but regardless, the impacts are basically the same. From roughly Pensacola west through Mobile Bay and towards Biloxi, Mississippi. Look for increasing winds, tropical storm force, with some gusts getting close to hurricane force. That 70-mile-an-hour mark, again, that'll really depend on exactly how much the storm is able to organize in the next 12 hours or so. Notice that even in these stronger model forecasts, the core of the winds is very small, so really only 5 to 10 miles across this very small area that's really going to see the brunt of the winds from this storm. Everyone else is mostly in the breezy category, wind gusts 30 to 40 miles an hour as opposed to those higher 50-mile-an-hour plus wind gusts. So if you happen to be in the path of that particular thunderstorm cluster that represents the center of the storm, look out for those high winds, and otherwise the primary threat from the storm will be the rain and the storm surge. Here's a look at some of the forecast uncertainty with regards to the wind speeds. This is visualized using our Forecast XL product, so you can get this for any town in the world, and we'll compare all the model forecasts for you so that you can see kind of a range of possible outcomes. So you can see here we have this range of possible outcomes based on exactly where the storm tracks, that core of the strongest winds we just talked about being very small, and how intense that core actually is. So you can see a kind of range of possible outcomes from a pretty strong core moving right over Biloxi, Mississippi. I picked that as a recognizable point, but you can do this for your town by typing it into the search bar here or over here. Then there's a chance that either the inner core isn't as strong or the inner core doesn't move over over Biloxi, in which case the winds would be quite a bit lower. Looking at the simulated radar forecast from the HRRR model, again, this is not meant to be a pinpoint accuracy forecast for individual storm cells, but it will give us a good, pretty general idea of what to expect. So we can start out here with the 12 o'clock forecast. You can see the brunt of the storm still offshore, still a little bit of time to get any preparations in order along the Mississippi, Alabama Gulf coasts. That window rapidly closes heading into this afternoon, though. Here we are by 4 o'clock. You're getting that rain to start moving in, gusty winds increasing as well. Note that the bulk of the thunderstorm activity continues to be focused to the east and northeast of the storm, so parts of Louisiana, while they may be close to the storm's center of circulation, perhaps we'll see weather that's not nearly as intense as an area of the parts of the Florida Panhandle that might be farther away from the storm's center. So this really lopsided storm structure will produce a lopsided impact portfolio as well. So you can see that the Florida Gulf Coast here, the Panhandle, west of Pensacola, the Alabama Gulf Coast here near Mobile, they're going to be getting into the inner rain bands here with the gusty winds, the heavy rain this evening, and then the inner core, or whatever exists as an inner core, it may just be a loosely organized cluster of thunderstorms, will make landfall at some point tonight. So the HRRR model forecasts that near Biloxi at about 11 o'clock tonight. So we'll see exactly when and where that core moves ashore. But again, the impacts are still lopsided, especially in terms of the rain, focused mostly to the east of the core. New Orleans expecting very little, if any, in the way of rainfall. Speaking of rainfall, here's a forecast from the National Weather Service. You can see there's still some disagreements in terms of between the weather forecast offices where the exact track of the heavy rain will be and how strong or how heavy the rains will be there. But you can see that remember, as our storm's tracking towards the Mississippi Gulf Coast here, the heavy rain is focused off to the east, and that'll be the case as the storm continues to move to the northwest through northern Louisiana and into parts of Arkansas. So more rain expected there. I'll look at the Weather Prediction Center's equivalent of this map. You can see it's the same general idea, looking for that very heavy rain to the east of the center, continuing as the storm moves inland towards Arkansas. So watch for flooding problems in this corridor. Lighter rainfall amounts expected both to the northeast and to the southwest, farther away from the storm's track. The storm will be moving up through the Midwest as we move through the rest of the week, where its remnant low will be producing some heavy rains, but other than that, impacts will be pretty limited. I'll continue to have more updates on Twitter today. You can follow us at WEATHER.US, and you can follow me at Jack Sillin. Thanks for watching.